Welcome to Resiliency Within. I am your host, Elaine Miller-Karras. And I also would like to say, as we're getting started today, that we are sponsored by the Trauma Resource Institute, a nonprofit that I started 20 years ago. And we so appreciate their endorsement and their sponsorship of this show. So today I welcome Dana Brown and Carey Sipp, and they are two friends and colleagues. And oh my goodness, they are stirring up the world in terms of well-being and resiliency. And I want to say a little bit about both of them before we start with the show. So welcome, Dana and Carey.
Thank you. Grateful to be here.
Yes, same.
So Carey Sipp is a solutions journalist, community builder, and subject matter expert on positive and adverse childhood experiences, PACEs, who has spent nearly 2 decades researching, writing, and speaking on the science linking childhood adversity to lifelong health outcomes, and championing the upstream prevention strategies and positive experiences that heal and protect. Carey has held a leadership role at PACES Connection. She serves on the board of the Star Network Foundation, the steering committee of Prevent First North Carolina, and the advisory board of Trauma Resilient Educational Communities. Carey is the author of Turnaround Mom. And Carey, there's so much more to say about you, but that is just a little bit. Both of their bios were so long. I said, I'm going to have to cut them down a little bit, otherwise we won't be able to have any time to talk. And Dana Brown is the PACES Science Statewide Facilitator and Interim Executive Director of PACES Connection. She is a powerful social entrepreneur who has served the youth of her community in so many ways. Some of the highlights of her dedication to her community include her efforts as an inner city community organizer in City Heights for 29 years. She was a commissioner on the City of San Diego Commission on Gang Prevention and Intervention and chaired the Youth Committee. She is the co-chair of the San Diego Trauma Informed Guide Team and on the Advisory Council of the University of San Diego's Character Development Center and the leadership team of the Warrior Spirit Family with Indigenous communities. Dana is a HeartMath National Certified Coherence Advantage trainer and the author of Hidden Treasures. So welcome, ladies, and I'm going to go to each one of you. And Dana, I'll start with you. What's on your mind as we're starting today?
Well, thank you again for the invitation to be with you and Carrie today. Really appreciate you, Elaine. I am just brimming with excitement from an incredible Faithful Cities Weave and Cleave conference in Phoenix, Arizona yesterday that Dr. Sang Hoon Yu and Marcia Stanton, which was part of the ACEs, Arizona ACEs Consortium, hosted. There were about 300 people from around the nation that were there, and it was amazing. It's their third annual this year, and the Faithful Cities is weaving together all kinds of religious doctrines throughout Arizona with science and the faith-based communities and government and community organizations and grassroots to grass top. So it was just uplifting and inspirational to be part of the Weave and Cleave conference yesterday.
I love the name Weave and Cleave, but I also like it's called Faithful Cities. Is
Right?
that
Yeah, because Dr. Sang Hoon Yu is a reverend, and he's also a social worker and a professor of social work.
well, as you know, I'm a social worker, so I'm just excited about even that name and also want to learn more about him as well. So, Carrie Sipp, what's on your mind as we're getting started today?
Well, I have a couple of things. One is I'm really excited that you're coming to Wilmington, North Carolina in a couple of 3 weeks,
I
that
am.
there is a community here that we introduced you to at 5 a.m. your time one morning when they had an 8 a.m. meeting about 8 years ago. And since that time, they have trained probably, what, 5 or 6,000 people in this area in the community resiliency model. Um, I need to get recertified as a trainer, but I was certified for a while as a trainer and have trained with many of these people. And we are just so looking forward to that visit. I'm also thinking about Earth Day having just passed
Yeah.
and how much, as I sit here with a upper respiratory infection and think about the children and elderly people, which I'm one of those too, not a child, but an elderly. I'm not going to say that. But anyway, that
You're the busiest older person I know. I don't know. maybe Dana, maybe me. I don't know. You're a pretty busy person. So
Only the
there you
three of us
go.
could
Yes,
we could power an AI data center.
I think we could.
We could,
Yes,
but just the concern that I have, the sense of entitlement people have about their ability to have their needs override the safety and well-being of people, because uh, you know, the earth only comes around. This is it. And so the stats are horrifying about the number of half the children in the United States are living in cities or places where the air pollution is dangerous. And that to me is an adverse childhood experience.
it is. And
It's environmental racism in some of those instances, but that's an ace. So
well, and I think that when we have kind of a media too, sometimes that focuses on so many things other than the health of the population, that then people don't even know that that statistic exists. And so that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have the two of you here. And I just want to say a little bit that we all honor the legacy of Jane Stevens, the founder of Paces Connection, and explore how her vision is evolving into a bold national and global trauma recovery movement, one grounded in the belief that healing-centered care is a right, not a privilege, which really feeds into what you were just talking about. So through the intentional collaboration of organizations guided by the Alliance Practice Strategic Consulting for the Trauma Sector, I think our conversation is going to highlight a growing movement that weaves together grassroots to systems level change. And I think that the three of us have been involved in that for a very long time. And with Jane Stevens' recent passing, the person who started Pace's connection, that we all probably wouldn't have known each other if it wasn't for that. And she was such a trailblazer. And she would say that she had 10 ACEs. And when she read the ACEs study that was published in the late 90s, that it changed her in her understanding and created. And what I love what she said, because having been a person who worked in healthcare, is many times articles that are written in journals for doctors never get to the population. And she was dedicated that that information was going to get to all of us, which I used to ask the question in the beginning of my training saying, how many of you have heard of ACEs? This is like 15 years ago. Nobody would raise their hand. If you did that now, almost everybody would raise their hand. So let's get started about talking a little bit more about this systems change. And Carey, I just feel like there's something on your mind. You're thinking about something you want to say. Would you like to comment?
well, I love that you mentioned Jane. I'm wearing her earrings and a bracelet of hers that has a pretty funny message in it about living happily ever after. So she's very much with us. And Dana and I were at a celebration of her life on Valentine's Day. But she really was just a remarkable human, and her just life's work of lifting up this science that she said explains everything. There's nothing that you cannot find the answer to in this. It all of the challenges that we have, but then also all of the solutions are in here. If we know that we could get upstream enough, we've worked so closely with uh, Dr. Diana Fishbein of the National Prevention Science Coalition. If we can get upstream enough, we could prevent so much. And so Jane's dedication to wanting to prevent pain and suffering is truly on my mind right this minute. And that is what we've continued by keeping Paces Connection going the last couple of years and now rehoming it.
Well, I just have to say that I want to say to my audience that Carey and Dana have been really beacons of light. They were not going to let that organization and the concepts of Jane's ideas die. And you have been, I know, tireless, talking to people, getting people together, making sure that it wasn't going to. And I just have great respect for both of you in doing this. So a great deep bow to both of you for
Oh,
doing this.
bless your heart. And interestingly, 2 years ago tomorrow is when it
Yes.
sunsetted. And Carrie and I have volunteered, we have full-time jobs. We volunteered just because we believe Jane's vision profoundly. And when Jane passed on November 30th of 2025, I talked to Dr. Nadine Burke Harris on that fall on December 6th. And it was then that I learned, I hadn't realized before, that Dr. Folletti actually called Nadine and said, "You need to meet Jane Stevens." And that was when Nadine was still in the Tenderloin district up in San Francisco. And so in 2016 and 2018, she was at the Center for Youth Wellness then, and that was who hosted those international conferences, was then ACE's connection and the Center for Youth Wellness. And that was prior to Dr. Burke Harris becoming the first Surgeon General in California and launching the ACEs Aware campaign. So the connective tissue of Jane Stevens and Dr. Folletti and Dr. Nadine Burke Harris is like a trifecta. And now Jane's gone. Dr. Folletti's 90 years old. You know, Nadine is another global hero. And really now with where she is, she's really looking for states to become ACEs aware, modeled after what California led.
And isn't that exciting to see how that has all come together and that how it's still living and growing? And so that kind of leads me to one of the questions I wanted to ask you both, which is what is the imperative role that PACE's Connection has globally as an online learning community platform?
Well, you want to start, Dana? And
Sure.
I'll just chime in when you're done.
Okay, that sounds great, Carey. Thank you. So there's, it's why Carey and I have volunteered and have been so passionate about ensuring that it's revitalized. And because there's nothing like PACE's connection in the entire world. It's the only, as far as I know, and I don't know what I don't know,
Yes.
but as far as I know, it is the only global online learning platform that is driven by individuals and organizations. We have over almost 62,500 members, and we have over 600 communities, which are either sector specific or they are geographic. And the geographic community so represents, being proximate, boots on the ground. It's the epitome of the micro, with lifting up and amplifying neighborhoods and cities and states and nations and countries. And it's the epitome of the macro, where it is really amplifying the systems change at a countywide level, statewide level, national level. And so it's everyone in between, grassroots to grass tops. It's a mile deep and an inch wide. And it is a connector and a convener and an amplifier. And initially, and you had mentioned it, Elaine, when Carey, you and I hopped on earlier, how it really was then Jane wanted to ensure that this got out to the world. And now it has evolved since 2012 to where we are now in 2026. It has evolved into truly community level. And so it isn't just awareness anymore. It is actionable steps. And so it is and it's free for any individual around the world. And we have cooperative of communities through PACE's Connection, which is really weaving countywide. I'm blessed with my colleague Craig Bestwick to lead 7 counties in California that align with 5 other counties of the California Collective Impact Cooperative of Communities Systems of Wellness. So now it's weaving countywide of cross sector in the individuals and the voices of lived experiences and individuals that are family members. It's just a tremendously exciting to see where it is right now. And when we chat a little bit about a May 22nd event, Carey would be thrilled if you want to expand upon that. Now it's one of the pillar that's going to launch a national movement. So Carey, please add.
Yeah, it truly is incredibly exciting since that moment that PACES was sunset. I stepped out on a balcony at a restaurant, batted out a quick press release of blog post that we're coming back. We're working on revitalization. Jane approved it and Dana cloned it to every community because we wanted people to not give up hope for this, because so many people have invested time and energy in the communities. And this is the place where we lift up that work. And in fact, as we were talking about, you're coming to New Hanover. I moved to New Hanover County, North Carolina, because of the resilient community here that was doing such incredible work. And now I believe with what's happening with our work with the Star Network Foundation, and I serve on the board, they have a peer-to-peer beautiful 12-step program, the Taranon meetings for toxic abusive relationship survivors. That's STAR Network. That's where the name came from, Survivors of Toxic Abusive Relationships. It's free. There are thousands of members worldwide. We hop on a meeting. We have a 12-step meeting. There's beautiful psychoeducation. I wrote an article about it and how many incredible organizations are behind it. Jamie works with Patrick Kennedy. He was Jamie Heisman, who leads the Star Network Foundation. He was the chief compassion officer for WellMed Medical for 17 years. And with incredible humility and grace, he leads with some other people these meetings. But the idea that through PACE's connection, we can offer this to the 62,000, almost 500 members that we have. And that is a starting place, because we say that if you have an ACE, you probably have experienced a toxic abusive relationship. And quite honestly, we're all in kind of a toxic abusive relationship right now with what is happening to the planet and the wars that we're in, and the fear that we could lose our voices with our votes. So I think that the timing of this, that we've brought together National Prevention Science Coalition, the Campaign for Trauma-Informed Policy and Practice. Jesse Kohler and I did your show
Yes, you
4
did.
or 5 years ago.
No.
Jesse now has the Change Campaign, the Alliance Practice Partners, Tom Bognano and his partners, who I met Tom 3 years ago this time. So April is always quite the month for us. That Tom, with his infinite wisdom as a nonprofit leader for many, many years, had written a piece for Forbes Philanthropy saying, I've been in all these health-related nonprofits for decades. And as I close out my career and retire, I realize that trauma is behind all of this. So he essentially said what we've all said. This is the third act. We're putting our lives and our fortunes and everything. Yes, we have our families, but into this preventing and healing trauma and promoting the positive childhood and adult experiences that help break these cycles, and really emphasizing going way upstream with preconception health and early relational health to support pregnant and newly delivered women with the wonderful neuronurturing information that we have, knowing that if a child has a horrible first 2 months of life and even a great next 12 years, that first 2 months is going to have a greater impact than the 12. It's just, we've got to make sure people have a good first couple of months, because with that, they have the foundation for health and well-being for the rest of their lives. If they have a safe, stable, nurturing environment in those first couple of months.
Yes, and I think it's so exciting when I'm talking about all the tributaries that have come from this initial idea that Jane had, that is just spreading and scaling through so many different communities. So I just want to, I was thinking, we are so familiar with ACEs and PACEs. Probably would be good for us to explain what an ACE is. It's an adverse childhood experience. And what was revolutionary in the late 90s, it was a project that was done in San Diego, Dana, where you live, right, in San Diego. And it was through Kaiser Permanente, a very large medical system. And what they found, that if you had 4 or more ACEs, adverse child experiences, that you had more health problems, you had more mental health conditions. What hit me, because I was teaching family medicine at the time, and this was very important to teach to young doctors, if you had 6 or more, your lifespan was cut by 20 compared to those who had 0. And your chances of being an IV drug user, this one blew me away, was 4,200 times greater than if you had 0. And so what became very clear, human beings, their efforts to mitigate, to reduce the impact of adverse child experiences led to many behaviors that were not good for us. And so that was revolutionary, because it was a medical system relating adverse child experiences to their medical records, showing that this had a huge impact. And then we had Dr. Christina Bethel and others who started working with positive childhood experiences because what you just said, Dana, and I want to, I always say what else is true. Those first few months of life are very important. In California, we have First Five, which is a very important program that helps to help families learn how to parent and have supportive environments for their children, for example. But it's also important to know that if you might be sitting there going, "Oh, my child had this happen in the first 2 months. Does that mean that my child is lost and going to be traumatized for the rest of their life?" The answer is no. Is that if we can create systems of support throughout the country, which I think is very much what you're involved with, is that positive child experiences can also reduce the impact of ACEs. And that's the exciting part of not only being trauma informed, but resiliency informed. And then one more piece is that when the show first started in January of 2021, the first month I had Jane Stevens on my show. I wanted her to be one of the first guests. And it was at that show that she announced that they were changing the name from ACEs to PACES Connection. So I feel very proud about that she was there. And anybody who wants to listen to Jane can go into our archives and hear her speak about the importance of this. So I just wanted to add that piece for people that may not know what ACEs and PACEs are, because you were talking to two women that are literally the beacons of light getting this
Right.
information out there. So Dana, now over to you. Is there anything that you want to comment upon from what Carey was illuminating for us?
Yeah, adding on to what Carey articulated, this is a time of hope. And we really want to amplify that and invite others to consider joining PACES Connection. It's free. The membership, your profile would take about 60 seconds to complete. And, after we approve it, we'll drop you into relevant communities, as Jane always says, where you live, where you work, where you pray, and where you play. And so really PACES Connection can be the microcosm globally, because we have members all over the world. We have communities in Ireland, in Europe, UK, Australia, New South, all over the Canada. A lot of people, members from Canada, truly all over the United States, and the sector specific of medical school and nursing science and faith-based and parenting with PACEs and practicing resilience for self-care and healing. It's, that's why Carey and I have been just steadfastly devoted to nurturing this forward and not letting it cease. Because as far as I know, there is really nothing like it in the entire world. And so we really do want to be that beacon of hope and amplify the great work that thousands of people are doing, boots on the ground. We want to amplify you. We want to lift you up. We need each other now more than ever before, from my perspective, and people need hope. They need hope from the sense of hope, all capital, healthy outcomes from positive experiences, and they need hope, small letter capitals, small letters. So it's invigorating and exciting to be at the juncture that we're at, and it is a testimony and a legacy to Jane Ellen Stevens.
Yeah.
So if people, how can people register? And where do they need to go? Because I imagine there's people going, where do I go? Do they just go to
Yep,
pacesconnection.org?
yep, www.pacesconnection.com.
And the
.com.
PACES stands for the Positive and Adverse Childhood Experiences. And teeing off of what Dana is saying, I love that now with Star Network, we do have a way for people to find immediate support in these free meetings that they offer 5 days a week at different times. And there are people from England and from all over the US who are helping with these meetings. So there is an instantaneous connection point for people who may be hurting. And I recently did some research and found that there's new research on positive adult experiences. And you may have heard me say this before. When I first read the ACE study in 1999, I read it, my mentor sent it to me in a manila envelope. I read it and I wept because I had the ACEs and I also had two little kids, and I also was a single mother. And so I didn't pull it out again until a couple of 3 years later when the brain science started showing, that our brains are neuroplastic and that we can change. And I had already been in recovery for about 8 years at that point and had seen the changes that come from going into a room full of people, sitting down, putting my butt in a plastic chair and shutting up and listening to other people and learning from their stories. But just watching in these Taranon meetings that Star Network does, people go from despair to hope, in the matter of an hour learning things. And so it's very exciting. They are having their Scars to Stars Day. Dana and I both attended last year. It's a virtual opportunity. It's free. Try could be a sponsor and have a booth in this virtual, wonderful opportunity where we're going to have many leading speakers, subject matter experts talking about some of the latest information in the science and learning more about these different pillars that are working. So we really want to highlight that Scars to Stars Summit on May the 22nd, and we'll put in the show notes how to register for that. But that's really the first time these pillars that we're talking about with trauma resilient education communities, PACES Connection, National Prevention Science Coalition, Alliance Practice and Change Campaign, and CTIP, all coming together in one virtual room to lift up the need to change systems, because as Dr. Anda said, what we know we can prevent. If we know it, we can prevent it. If we know that this causes this, we can prevent it. So we are all so dedicated to prevention and also to helping people who have experienced the ACEs, knowing that there's always healing and there's always hope and our brains are always changing. And
So
being a
let's
part of this is a positive adult
Yes.
experience.
So when we come back from our break, we want to
Yeah.
talk more about that healing and that hope, and also maybe do a deeper dive in some of the system change that you all are conceiving and how people that are listening could be a part of it. Is it coming to Paces Connection, but is Star Network? Probably need to unpack that a little bit to see how people can get involved. So we'll be back in just a couple minutes and we will continue this wonderful conversation with Dana Brown and Carey Sipp about Paces Connection. Welcome back. This is Elaine Miller-Karras, the host of Resiliency Within. I'm with Dana Brown and Carey Sipp from Paces Connection, and we are talking about the exciting movement that they are continuing through their joint efforts and now through the sponsorship of it's what is it called again? The Star
The
Net Star
Scars to
Net
Stars Day on
Star
May 22nd.
and an event that's going to be on May 22nd. So I want to talk a little bit more about that. And we already talked a little bit about that, but also I think an important question for both of you is, I guess what we call, the upstream policies. What are they? And innovative strategies and tactics do you see as coming with regard to global prevention and trauma recovery and healing? So who wants to go first with that one?
Carey, you want to go first?
I'll I'll give an example, but so we're so blessed with this weaving of this new group that is revitalizing, re-energizing Paces Connection, that we've got people who are have been involved in medical systems. One of the things that when I first got to Paces, I wanted to do, because I was gobsmacked by the fact that Black women die at a rate 3 to 4 times that of white women in childbirth, Black infant and maternal health fatalities. And so we started as an upstream move, the Trauma-Informed Healthcare Educators and Researchers Group. And that group has met faithfully. We tied in Andres Ciola from UC Davis down to friends at Emory. So we went West Coast to East Coast, which Dana's on the West Coast, I'm on the East Coast. We love the idea of meeting in the middle. And then tied in with another group, Dr. Martina Jelly and Ellen Goldstein. And this group has been meeting faithfully for, I think, monthly for 6 or 7 years, having trauma-informed policy and application practices detailing for how we prevent racism, how we create dyads in the medical world where people have equal importance, where we don't promulgate racism in medicine, because it is promulgated in medicine. Serena Williams almost dying after childbirth is a clear and evident example of that. But we are able at Paces to drop people into communities such as that community, where they can get in there and get upstream on what it is they're concerned about. So parenting, upstream parenting practices of neuro-nurturing, which I say is really like loving someone as if their brain development depends on it. And that is across the lifespan. Looking at someone who has Alzheimer's, or who is depressed, or who is dealing with a health crisis. If we look at them and we love them as if the health of their brain depends on it, our hearts soften. As Dana likes to say, the brain in our heart softens, because we get that human connection. And the science of connection is huge, and that is what we're about. But going upstream to do the neuronurturing, working with preconception health care, so that kids, before they get pregnant, understand what is going to be involved, and the importance of nurturing infants, the importance of nurturing pregnant women. There's so many things in this country that we don't do. Paid family leave, high quality supported childcare, visiting home nurses that we know have an impact. Kids whose moms have a visiting home nurse are like half as likely to be just as involved at the age of 15. Oregon just started with visiting home nurses. New Mexico just passed legislation offering free childcare to people in the state. Those are upstream policies and practices that, and there are more, but trying to take trauma-informed, or as Dana says, trauma-resilient practices and policies into the workplace. Workplaces are tremendous sources of stress and toxicity and abuse. And the parent gets stressed and goes home and carries that stress. How we can revise and remodel what our work life is like in this country, because The inequity in this nation breeds so much challenge of the haves versus the have-not. And poverty is an ace. Food insecurity is an ace. Racism is an ace. How we can start flipping the script on these things to be more inclusive, more loving, more self-aware, which is one of the great things in the Taranon meetings. The self-awareness is incredible. So being self-aware, I'm going to shut up and let Dana talk. So
Well, I think one of the things is that, these are important goals. And it's kind of like the how to. And I know people sometimes say, whoa, that's a lofty goal. How can you possibly do that? And so maybe, Dana, you can talk a little bit about what is it like when these different groups come together when they have an issue that is dear to them, that gives them purpose and meaning, and they come together through the interconnections that PACES is able to make for people that may not have known each other. So I wonder if you could say a little bit about that.
Yeah, thanks so much, Elaine. So I'll use San Diego County as an example. So out of when the positive childhood experiences research was released in September of 2019 and really counterbalanced the ACE study that was released in May of 1998, which is the largest public health study in our young nation that millions of people still have not heard of. And so from the positive childhood experiences, it evolved into another opportunity called HOPE, all capitals, healthy outcomes from positive experiences. And it is San Diego County is the first HOPE informed county in the United States. Child Welfare Department in San Diego County reformed to child family well-being, the first in California, possibly the United States. And they're the first Hope Informed, Rady's Children Hospital, first Hope Informed, San Diego State University, first Hope Informed, and so many other community-based organizations are also infusing these pillars of the Hope framework, engagement, relationships. It's an exciting time because it is cross-sector. It's literally folks that are weaving all of this together, grassroots to grass tops, cross sector in a social ecological model, and across the lifespan. So it's exhilarating to be part of a growing movement here in San Diego County that I'm blessed to be part of, that is really weaving. And we are striving to be a pilot for California and ultimately, hopefully, our young nation. So as Carey articulated, that's one of the beauties of PACE's connection is amplifying all of this, because we have communities in all the places that we've been mentioning in your Resiliency Within podcast, Elaine. That's one of the goals of what Jane Stevens, of amplifying so that others have a place literally all around the world that they can tap into and learn from and glean best practices to customize to where they are, because every neighborhood is unique, every city, every state, every nation is unique. But it's such an accessible way for individuals to have hope and have access, be inspired, amplify their own leadership. It's driven by lived experiences, honoring Sissy White, nothing about us without us. And so we're just really grateful to be at the place that we are, and amplifying everything forward.
I have a curiosity question regarding Star Network and the way that Carey described it, because it sounds like they have a framework of support that's really wonderful, but some people may not like that framework. They may be involved, they may have their own framework of how they support people that are suffering, for example. So if people become a part of PACE's Connection, do they have to go to a Star Network meeting, or is it just something that is also is offered if
It's
you don't want
available.
to? It's
It's
available.
available.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
even though they're your fiscal sponsor, it's not a requirement that they have to be involved in the network of support, the 12-step programs, for example, because people might be confused about that.
no, 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 no. We offer a resource center that is full of handouts and videos and presentations. And yes, do we want to update it? Yes, we do. We're looking forward to being able to update it a lot. But people can go to PACES Connection and click on the communities, and they can go to their state and they'll see California has a PACES community in almost, I think, every county in California. North Carolina is, we have 100 counties, and I think we've got 45 PACES communities. And I'm so thrilled to learn that in North Carolina, most of those PACES communities, from what we understand from a new survey that is being done, they're still functioning like the New Hanover Resiliency Task Force group that can't wait to get their hands on you and give you a big old hug.
Well, I want to talk about a living example, because when I met Carey many years ago, we talked and she knew what we were doing at the Trauma Resource Institute, knew that we had a model that was about the biological impact of trauma and resilience, right, based on neuroscience. And so when a terrible hurricane came to North Carolina, Carey got on the phone and said, Elaine, would you meet with a group of people from Wilmington, North Carolina, that have just experienced this terrible, horrible hurricane that is impacting the entire community? But can you let them know a little bit about what your organization does that could be helpful? It was like an invitation. It wasn't like, oh, you need to do this. It was like, maybe this could be helpful or not. So I just want to, kind of do a shout out to Carey because she was part of Pace's Connection at the time. And so she arranged the whole thing. I did an hour presentation, and there are a number of community members there. I remember Mebane Boyd especially was there at the time, and who was really one of the key figures at that point in time. And so we did that, and we went in later. They got some funds through a community foundation, and we trained, I think, 30 people to be community resiliency model teachers. And so from those 30 people, they spread out. They were from different parts of the community, and they started bringing in what I would say trauma and resiliency informed interventions into the community. And so that was how many years ago now? 8 years ago?
It's about 8 years ago.
Yeah, 8 years ago. And so now I think we have probably more community resiliency model teachers per capita in Wilmington than we have probably anywhere on earth. We have a lot of them in different parts. I don't know. Georgia might get a little upset if I say that. But in any event, I think that that is a perfect example because it's bringing one idea to many people that are working in many sectors, whether it's in law enforcement, in child welfare, in community interventions, when people are unhoused, food insecurity, but it just spread. And
Yeah.
so all those different organizations then became also then part of the organization that I started because they became crim teachers, just like Carey said she is, right? So I just think that model works so well because the other thing that happened, Javane Skiba, who's in charge of the Resilience Network, and Mebane actually, I'm involved with another organization that they were invited to come to, which is the International Transformation no, Resilience Coalition, which is a group of people worldwide that are working with the impact of climate change on the psychological and physical experience that is harming many of us around the world, like you said, Carey, about pollution. And so they actually testified in Congress regarding their resiliency and trauma informed community, which I mean, the community resiliency model is one small part of it, but I think it shows the impact if that can happen in Wilmington, North Carolina, and New Hanover County, that can happen in every single county and city in the country. And Dana, it certainly sounds like you're doing that in San Diego as well. But I just think, I personally had this experience and I wanted to share that with our audience, how exciting that is, which is another reason why I'm really excited to come to Wilmington, because through this age of Zoom and technology, I've never been to Wilmington, yet I know that I know many people there that are dear to me that I've only met on Zoom. So I think this is the power of what you're doing, that you don't have to be in one particular central city, right, to create what you're doing because
Right,
of the virtual world that we live in right now, which I think is also part of systems change. I don't know what you all think
right.
about that.
Well, and I want to give a shout out to Bob Doppelt. We have the Climate Trauma Project community on PACES Connection.
There you go. And Bob Doppelt is the person who started the International Transformation and
Mhm.
Resilience Coalition.
Yeah,
And he is a worldwide leader of bringing attention to the psychological impact of climate change on human beings. So
Wow.
thank you, Dana. I just love that. So shout out to Bob.
Yeah.
yeah,
So
Yes.
many communities like that. And it's amazing. I went and pulled this, which I hope you can see a little bit
Well, our
It's
audience
blurred.
is
I
on,
know it's blurred, so
say,
I can,
oh, well, I
yeah,
think maybe you
well,
should just
yeah,
describe
I
it
can
for us,
tell you
Carey.
what it is.
Yeah.
And one way that we worked on this, and I've got two examples just very quickly to share, is we put a collage together. We did a CREM training, community resiliency model training at the beautiful museum we have here in Wilmington, Cameron Art Museum. There had been a real crisis in the school because of some allegations of sexual abuse. We pulled the art teachers, the music teachers, the dance theater people together, and we had a very dear friend of mine brought in tons of collage materials, and we all made these beautiful collages, and we put on them what we loved. And I put on there the 6 pillars of CREM about resourcing and grounding and shifting state and help now and tracking. And so if you could see this, it's got owls and blueberries and the ocean and all of these wonderful things that I love. But I think about that because that brought tremendous healing to those teachers. And that was one of the first subcommittees that the New Hanover Resiliency Task Force had, was the art subcommittee. But then another example is that uh, this was pretty wild, that people from Healthy Blue called me. They had seen my name in Places Connection and said, hey, can you help us improve the health and well-being of foster children in North Carolina? So I pulled together some of these people that we're talking about. We did a focus group. What could we do that would best help? How could we get down to that? And the focus group decided, let's train a lot of DSS people and people in each community in the CREM model so that they can help parents learn how to regulate themselves. Because we know from, well, when you talk about being in Katrina, Elaine Miller Karras,
Yeah. Yes.
that one disaster can be proliferated a jillion times over when people are not able to access that prefrontal cortex, if they can't regulate, if they can't co-regulate, that one disaster can lead to a whole lot of other disasters because we don't make the best decisions if we're not tracking, if we're not grounding, if we're not resourcing. This cup is a resource for me that I hold on to, that y'all have seen me pick up many times, but it's a resource for me. It's solid. It gives me comfort. So our teaching that, it went so well that we got funding again, but we got to go into 7 counties and teach CREM to foster parents, teachers, and then we actually even got to train DSS people throughout the state because, again, I know you were so concerned when the pandemic hit. What's going to happen to the training? I
I
said at
know. I was
3 o'clock in the morning, we're talking one more, 3 o'clock in the morning, I said, Elaine, I know it's horrible, but the silver lining in this is that people they won't have anything else to do but go online, get the online training cooking. And look
And
what,
boy, we worked hard to do it. But, I'm also, I think when you're talking about that system, and I think this is also, we're talking about system change, we're talking about organizations. But I remember you introduced to me a young man named Zayante, who came through the
oh,
foster care system. And Carey, that is one young man that was changed. And talk about paces, right? And aces, because he had both. But the
oh yeah.
paces part. But if you want to say a little bit about Zayante, because we actually even had him on our youth advisory committee to help us with a youth project.
Oh
But that
yeah. And
came from that. That was a seedling that was dropped that grew into an oak tree.
well, and he was a foster child in a mixed race family. Um, and his mom worked for Coastal Horizons, which is a massive, uh, Wilmington is a great recovery town, but treatment center facility, um, lots of different supports that they offer, maternal health, a brand new program that launched, Wilmington Health
But you know what?
Access for
But
Teens.
talk a little bit. We don't have a
Yeah, but
lot of
about
time
him,
left. You can say a
but
little bit about him because I think he
yeah,
is a living
yes.
example of what you and Dana are trying to do.
Well,
Say
his
a little
mom,
bit about him.
yeah, his mom had been trained in CREM, and he loved what she was doing so much that they had a house fire. And this kid is CREMing, as we call it. He's working the 6 neurobiological tools in the midst of the house fire. he and his mother want to be CRIM trainers together. He would take the CRIM, the tracking, the resourcing, the grounding, the remembering the person, place, or thing that brings you comfort and how you can amplify that to his friends in school. And here he was, I don't know exactly what his early years were like, but he is making the most of every minute that he has with this leadership that he has gained, the knowledge that he's gained through Trauma Resource Institute, the community resiliency model. And just, I hope when he's old enough, he wants to do the training so he can be
Well,
a
but I think
trainer.
this is directly connected to PACES.
Yes,
That's why I brought this in.
yes, because we
Because,
wrote about him. We wrote
right,
about
we wrote about him, but it's
him.
what you all are doing, because if it wasn't for PACES, the Trauma Resource Institute would never have been involved with him to learn the skills that helped him to really work on his well-being, which is all what we're trying to do, is help the well-being of individuals, families, and communities. I mean, am I saying that correctly, ladies?
Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
because trauma is contagious, and um and 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 likewise, when people self-regulate, as you know, when people slow down their talking, they start to breathe. But that this young man learned this watching his mother and took it further, and that was because you spoke to us that early morning, 5 a.m. your time.
Mhm.
And that was the proliferation. And then to get the grant from Healthy Blue so that we could take it out further.
This
And
is systems change
this is
in
systems change in
we're
real
showing,
time.
yes, in real time. And this can happen in every single community. Now, ladies, we have about 4 minutes left. And I want to make sure that you get what you want to say. And I know you want to talk about this May 22nd event. Do you want to say something more about that, Dana? And let us know how people can sign up for that May 22nd event?
Yeah, absolutely. So we invite all of you. It's an international free virtual event on Friday, May 22nd, and you can come as a participant. Your organization can be there in the virtual booth if you'd like to, and reach people all over the world. If you'd like to, you can consider becoming a sponsor of it. And we just really want to weave globally, cross-sector in a socio-ecological model. And as Carey mentioned earlier, the pillars that we have, which is the intentional weaving now with PACES Connection, NCTIP, and the Change Campaign, and National Prevention Science Coalition to Improve Lives, Trauma Resilient Educational Communities Track. These pillars are truly weaving together. And May 22nd is a really powerful day for all of us to really show we want to launch a national trauma-informed movement and inspire every person living in the United States, every person living around the world, that come join us, come join this momentum, come join. And I believe, Carey, is it they just go to www.starnetwork.org, and they will see there on the website how they can register for the free virtual event on Friday, May 22nd.
So starnetwork.org. I'm going to say it again because I want to make sure that people hear that. Now, okay, Carey, you get to say a final word as well.
Well, Star Network Foundation, we're deeply grateful to them. We're deeply grateful to Alliance Practice Partners. We're so grateful to Diana Fishbein and National Prevention Science Coalition that took us in as our fiscal sponsor when PACES Connection was sunset. Jesse Kohler of Campaign for Trauma Informed Policy and Practice, and the person who will be guiding that now, Jeremy Frierson.
For Fierstein.
Fierstein, pardon me. And so, and what I'm met with as we're closing out is that PACES Connection with these pillars, with you, Elaine Miller Karras, we want to meet people where they are in realizing the impact of their trauma. People are not born bad. Things happen. It's not our fault. There's no blame. There's no shame. There's no guilt. There's love. There's acceptance. There's healing. There's neuroplasticity. There's the opportunity to stop generational cycles of addiction and abuse and neglect. And that's what we're doing. The parenting community, meet us in the parenting community. There'll be articles there for parents. Meet us in the well-being community. Meet us in the LGBTQ community or the climate trauma
So
community.
there's all these
All
communities
these different, and meet
that
us
people
there.
can tap into.
And you can connect with people in those communities. We've got a lot of revitalization to do. We haven't had funding to do a lot for the last 3 years, really. But this is well worth investing in
So it
the
sounds like you're
global network.
definitely in a building process.
We're
So
in a, yes.
yeah, and so what I'd like to say as we're ending, I always end with what else is true. And I think we can see what else is true, that yes, there's hardship, there's suffering. But I'm going to use, Dana, the word that you brought in many times, but there is hope and there is connection. And we know that when people connect to others that maybe are going through similar things, that something magic can happen in changing the world. And again, a deep bow to Dana Brown and Carey Sipp from Paces Connection that are doing exactly that. pacesconnection.com, and you can register and become part of their organization, and then you can choose what you want to be involved with and think about all the different opportunities. And who knows, you can be that person in your community that ends up doing what Carey did for New Hanover County, who knows, and what Dana does for San Diego and the world, what they both do for the world, I have to say. But I happen to know those two communities a little closer to home. So thank you both very much. You have an open door to come back to Resiliency Within, to we want to hear about your journey as it continues, because it is definitely growing. And kudos to you both for getting the sponsorship, and really, in the name of Jane Stevens, I'll say that will be our final statement for the day is, bless you, Jane Stevens, for all the work that you did that brought us all together, that continues, and this is your legacy. So this
Much
is your,
love and light to all of you. Bless you all.
thank you,
Thank
Dana.
you. Peace.
And this is Elaine Miller Cara signing off for Resiliency Within.